Hey everybody, welcome to Strumming with Christopher. I'm Christopher Gallegos with Monterey County Free Libraries. So, we've talked about the blues and we've talked about country music, and today I want to talk about folk music. So, at least in North America, the whole timeline of musical styles that we've been covering, blues and country have similarities, have common origins, and so does folk music. Now, folk music, I'm kind of skipping over jazz for now because jazz is its own thing. If you're looking at it chronologically, jazz would probably come next, but jazz is a little bit more involved to talk about. But folk music is accessible for us with the things that we know and the skills that we have thus far. So folk music, similar to what I said about country music, it has its initial origins in England and was a kind of message music. You'd have people singing love songs, ballads, songs about somebody in the village, stories set to music, mostly acoustic instruments, flutes, drums, lutes, guitars, harps, stuff like that. Now in North America, particularly the States, I include North America, Canada, folk music, for our purposes, is essentially, it came to prominence in the years during the Vietnam War. So you could be really broad and say 1959 and up. And folk music became affiliated with a lot of the music that was coming out of the universities during the Vietnam War. Now, you had a lot of people that didn't want to go to Vietnam, they didn't want to get drafted, and so they went to college, and you had a lot of music and poetry and activism and stuff like that coming out of the universities during the Vietnam War. So folk music really rose to prominence during that time. So you had artists like Bob Dylan, Joan Baez, Joni Mitchell, some big ones. Now, the reason I wanted to cover folk, not so much because of the messages. I mean, that's the whole point of this is about guitar, right? But folk music, it very much is a kind of a one person and a guitar type genre. So, of course, you have bands. I mean, you have blues music where it's one person and a guitar, same with country, but a lot of times you have a band. But in folk music, a lot of these artists that rose to prominence when folk music started, in the United States at least, they were just playing one acoustic guitar and singing. It was a really pure art form musically, and it really applies to what we've learned here, because folk music, one of the things that makes it unique is you have strumming, where you play all the notes at once, but you also have a lot of finger picking, and I can't tell you why this came to prominence. Maybe they were trying to copy some of the harp sounds from British music, but finger picking is really just, instead of playing all the notes of a chord at once, strumming, you have a situation where you're playing notes kind of cascading one after the other. So I want to show you two really simple examples that you hear in a lot of folk music. There's not really names for them, and there's no right or wrong way to finger pick, but it does take a little finesse and a little practice. So get that right hand warmed up. So we're going to be using four fingers mostly: thumb, index finger, middle finger, and ring finger. Pinky because it's shorter. A lot of times it doesn't really work. And what you're doing is we're going to take, well, for this example, we're going to take a D chord and an A minor chord, two chords that we're pretty familiar with at this point. So let's start with a D chord. So D chord, you're going to have your middle finger on the 2nd fret on the high E string, ring finger on the 3rd fret on the B string, index finger 2nd fret on the G string, and you're going to have this open D that you're playing to. So that's 4 notes, right? Strum, strum, strum. But what we're going to do, keep that shape up there. We're going to go down to our right hand, and we're going to basically pick each string individually. Okay, so in this example, we're going to start with the thumb playing the open D, the bass note, and we're going to basically just go down the strings. So we're going to have our thumb play the D string, okay? Then we're going to have our next finger, index finger, play that G string. We're going to have our middle finger play the B string, and our ring finger is going to play the high E. Okay, so what that would look like in practice, going downwards, you're going to essentially have something like this. Holding that D chord, remember, and you're going to just be playing from the lowest string down, in this case D down to the high E, with that kind of pattern there. Okay, and then you can also do that going upwards, and you just go backwards. So your ring finger would play the high E, middle finger B, index finger G string, and D, thumb, open D. So it would be. So if you're playing down and then up, it would kind of look and sound like this. So it's a very simple little pattern. You can also do with an A minor chord, which hopefully you recall. A minor chord is first finger on the B string, first fret, middle finger on the second fret on the D string, and right under that, ring finger second fret on the G string, playing that open A string, which is string number 5. And the same thing with that. Now this is a little different because there's 5 notes in here instead of 4 like a D. So you could play the first 4 notes that same way. Thumb, index, middle, ring finger, and then back up. And if you want to go down, so you're playing the bottom 4 strings, you could shift down. So it would look kind of like this. I'll try to do it slow. Holding that A minor, remember. Playing around with that. It's a very simple pattern, but you can use it with any chord. Just real fast, I'll show you like a bar chord and then a first position. You don't have to learn this, but just so you can kind of see. So B minor bar chord. E minor. Oops. Yeah, so that's a really simple finger picking pattern that you hear in a lot of folk songs, and you can have a song that sounds really beautiful with 3 or 4 chords if you're picking just in a really fluid way. That kind of thing, right? So another quick pattern we can learn that you hear in a lot of folk type songs. Same thing with a D, and I'll just kind of show you this for the example, where you would skip a string. What would that look like? Well, we've done that straight down pattern, right? Thumb, index, middle, ring. So what if you want to, say for this example, use your thumb and your index finger only, and you would play the D open, and then you'd skip this G string, and you'd go down to a B, and then you'd go down to G and high E. So something like this. With an A minor, you'd also be skipping strings here, so right. So you might want to play a bass note, and then skip that D string and go down to the G, and then skip again. Once you're comfortable with those 2 fingers, you can try other ones, but this is just to get you started, right? So look very carefully at how my fingers are moving. It's not the view you're going to see if you're looking down, but it's almost like, think about little hooks, little hammers on a piano. So just play around with those ideas. Any first position chords you know at this point. E minor, you have 6 strings to work with. You could go 1, 2, 3, 4, go down again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and up. You can even mix in some strumming. So for example, you're finger picking a D and you strum an A minor, something like this. So you hear a lot of patterns like that in at least North American folk music. It's a very acoustic guitar-centric thing. You can do it on electric too if that's what you're using. But yeah, and fun fact, one of the biggest artists in American folk music, Joan Baez. If you look on YouTube, she has some concerts where she was playing in Big Sur in the 60s. And it's really interesting to see her playing on a cliff full of people, just her and her guitar. She has an amazing voice, and she's doing a lot of these kinds of finger-picking patterns. And it just works for that kind of music. So yeah, check it out. Always happy to talk to you all. Stay safe. Keep practicing. Have a great week. Thanks.